I'm thinking the same thing you are as we gather together this morning. Is this really appropriate that we should be hanging out together on a morning like this? Whew. Oh my goodness, what a night, huh? And what a strange day that's welcoming us this Sunday. I'll tell you, so last night, we don't have air conditioning in our house. So obviously at night we open up all the windows and try to cool the place down, but that, hasn't worked much, given the temperatures aren't dropping at night. So last night I decided, okay, that's it. I'm sleeping outside. So I set up on a cot outside on our back porch area. And man, in the middle of the night, as you well know, I got woken up by lightning and wind that howled through the house and knocked pictures off the wall and plants over and literally blew a screen out and threw it across the room. Uh, uh, so a little disoriented this morning, but glad to be chilling out with all of you as you begin to log on this morning. Hopefully you're safe and sound. You've got some electricity, and that we are hoping that all is sustained through this time together this morning. So good to see you connecting. Of course, as we do gather together, as I've reminded us all over and over again, this is the one way in which we can reach out to each other and feel some sense of connectedness as a wider community, whether you're here on the live event that I'm hoping you're connecting to, or whether you view this later on during the week, that you just feel this, at least a sense of intimacy with others who are sheltering in their homes and in their places of residence as well. And at the same time, sort of working to do their inner work, to be present for self, for one another, and for world in a way that matters during this complex time. And that's really what church has become, it seems like, since this global pandemic hit, is this kind of passing on the torch of responsibility for your own spiritual journey to every household. You have to kind of step to the plate and be disciplined and be connected. And this is one of the places that you can do that. Of course, there's many others, but I'm delighted that so many of you have chosen to just hang out for a bit and allow this moment to be your centering place as you launch into the week. Anyway, so I could keep going, but I'm not going to. So let's talk a little bit about the theme for today. And I want to do a little bit of a centering practice with you today as you connect. Certainly, shout out to one another and say hello as we all kind of log on. And make sure that people feel your love as you arrive in this space. But today I wanted to think about there's a lot of negativity floating around, a lot of energy in the air, clearly, around the pandemic. I do want to touch base on that a little bit. But also, I do believe that what I'm thinking of as safe havens are kind of opening up and inviting us into sort of foundational places that I think we need to take the opportunity to settle into more fully. And that's the theme I want to just spend some time with you on today. And I mentioned it at the opening, if you caught the little subtle reference. This capacity to listen to the inner workings of your own soul is one of the safe havens. Like world is inviting us there. Capacity to have truly intimate or connected conversations with the people that matter in your life. Since your circle of connectivity has shrunk, it does give you this capacity to remember how to be a vibrant partner alongside of the journey of another. And that's a skill set that we're being invited into. It's another safe haven where we can explore how to be human together. And of course, the third one is this capacity still to be in world, in nature, that primary location that has for eons held the energy of the spirit of humanity. That's That's where we originally looked to pay attention to how we find ourselves positioned in world. And nature is still the place that invites us in a safe way to be present. And I think there's something beautiful about those three. And maybe you have some more that you can think about today, but I want to spend just a little bit of time guiding us to the place of why those three matter and what we might be doing there. Okay? So before I do the centering ritual, just to kind of give you a kind of a feel for this week, me in particular, the conversations I have had, it feels like a couple things are happening that I've noted both internally and in conversations with others. And one is a kind of I think we've been all not like resisting, but hesitant and nervous about using this time for real transformation. Right? We put so much energy into navigating the complexities of just everyday life in this situation that most of our energy just simply goes there. And particularly for households who see their kids returning back to schools, or people who've had to learn how to work from home, people struggling, with their either their vocational lives that are kind of falling apart at the seams, or businesses that they've started that are struggling. I can go on and on and on, right? We've all had to put a lot of energy, and for good reason, to learn how to just navigate the normal. But there is, I think, in a sense, a calling to us, and we've talked about this, to also find the energy to enter into the possibility of reframing our sense of self, our sense of neighbor, and our sense of world. This is like, unprecedented opportunity to do that. And yet we're kind of hesitant to do that. We're a little bit, fearful about what might get lost if we really give ourselves to that transformation. We're fearful about the pain and agony it might cause inside when we have to let go of certain things. Whether they be the ways in which we connect to society, or think about ourselves, or vocation, or the way in which we've treated the planet. There will be things that we need to let go of. That loss is scary. So I think there's a hesitancy. And at the same time, in all the conversations I've had this week, I feel like we're entering into kind of new territory. As this lingers on, people are feeling a bit more edgy or raw or nervous, that which they held so close is truly kind of slipping away. I think about it in a simple way. I take vacations like all of you every year, and usually on vacations, I never really disengage with work or home. I'm always still thinking about the projects at home. I'm still inside the relationships that matter most. I'm still connected to work and handling emails. I'm never really so separated from it that it starts to disappear. But I had this experience when I went on sabbatical for 3 months years ago in Vermont. And I hit this point in the sabbatical where I'd been separated, distanced from my normal life long enough that I began to forget about it, and it started making me nervous. Right? I couldn't remember what projects I left behind at home. I couldn't remember, and I lost track of work. I wasn't handling emails. I was losing my old self. And I was amazed how quickly the transition happened, and I was having to embrace my Vermont self. And I found myself, kind of living into a new me, a new experience of life fully, because everything from my old life had just slipped away. And I realized I never really had to go back. I did, of course, but I realized a new life was possible. Whether that kind of slippery space where the one is receding and the other is coming up on the horizon is sort of the feeling I'm getting at this point in time, that people are, there's so much disruption that we're feeling like we're losing touch. I'll get people talking to me about worrying that church will never come back to the way it was, right? They're sensing that. And I think there's some truth there, right? They're worried that their vocational lives will never return to the way they were. Um, some of the relationships that they held as valuable, the same thing. Things have slipped away so long that people are feeling like they're losing connection to it. And there's a anxiety, grieving, deep concern, and I think that's totally real. For me, I can feel it, and I don't know about other I don't know about other genders, but for me, I've struggled with trying to name my feelings, and if I come up with a metaphor, it helps me, right? So I feel like I've got this like flurry of butterfly activity just under the surface of my stomach. That's sort of my what's going on here feeling, and it's a little unnerving. I, I think there's a lot of that that's going on right now. So, given all that happening, how can we, not just hunker down and hang in there, but continue to focus in on the stuff that is opening up to us as safe haven? And as a centering piece today, let's just use some body movement if you're comfortable with it, or just watch me do it. And that is, I'm going to start by holding my hands, on my center, and I would use my belly, but I would lose camera. It would go out of camera. So this is like holding my deepest inner self, and I'm going to take a deep breath there, and then I'm going to open up my hands as if I'm really attentive to another, whether it be your spouse or partner or friend or somebody in your your coronavirus bubble that you've got, whoever it happens to be, some person that I want to be as present as I can for. And then a wider embrace of kind of earth and world that's inviting us. And so let's just take a brief moment and kind of feel those three safe havens together with some confidence that they can function as sort of the ground of our being, that is the character of the opportunity that particularly religious people who are willing to give that some energy, that is where the opportunity lies. And so I want to do that with you just briefly, just to get centered today, and then guide you into an old biblical story about a guy who falls off his horse. All right? So let's just take a deep breath, pause for a minute, just breathe with me, and just feel for a moment the depth, the rich and vast landscape that it was within you. And for a moment, just tap into the vast wonder of all that's going on inside of you in these times. It is safe haven for you to journey there. It is an open invitation for you to be tending to those places deep within, feelings, thoughts, insight, intuition, deep ponderings, dreams, fears. That world is speaking to you. Take one more breath, and then I invite you to open your hands up as if you are attending to another. And imagine those who you care for, that you want to be attentive to. Stare into the face of another. Allow their story to be their story, right? Let yourself be mirror or reflector of their story. Hold them in some way that allows them to be a deeper person. They are safe haven for you in this time. A place where you can discover again what it really means to be neighbor to one another, intimate, vulnerable, inquisitive, open, to the life of another. What a gift that is. That is safe haven for us these days. And then finally, some open arms to the creation itself, who continues to invite us to her trails and her open spaces, to breathe alongside of her, to sit at the shoreline, to feel her vibrancy beneath our feet, to be nourished by the nutrients of the land that she continues to reveal to us. Nature itself is safe haven for us still. A safe haven that invites us to be connected in a meaningful way. So one more deep breath and then move yourself through those three. The depth of your own wondrous soul, the mystery and beauty of another, and the full embrace of a world that has nurtured our life and will continue to nurture life. A gift of life for us all. Each of those places, safe, safe, safe portals, landings, invitations for us all. Amen. Okay, well, hopefully little exercises like that you can do for yourself any old time during the week are just ways to embody what we're talking about today. And to help us with this journey today for the next 15 minutes or so, I want to talk about an old story in the Christian scriptures about Saul. Saul was a Pharisee. In fact, Saul titled himself a Pharisee of Pharisees. I mean, he was like an uber Pharisee. And for those of you who have taken the Mark class or who are at least familiar with the Pharisees and their role during the time of Jesus, Jesus was always in conflict with three different groups: the priests, the scribes, and of course the Pharisees. Those three groups did not see both the teachings and way of Jesus and the community that was forming around the energy of the kind of the Jesus movement. They saw that as a threat. It was breaking down the orders of the day, the religious orders, the economic orders, the familial orders of the day. And so they totally saw it as a threat. The Pharisees in particular, and of course Saul, who was a huge Pharisaic advocate, was all about maintaining the status quo through kind of regulation, through kind of behavioral codes that any old person could adhere to, and it would keep them on the straight and narrow. And that was the way they saw kind of religion functioning. And the Pharisees were folk who helped common everyday people kind of regulate their life in conjunction with the religious perspective of the day through all of these kind of, I don't want to call them rules, but sort of ways of living, right? And Jesus comes along and the early Christian community starts to blossom, and they kind of say that stuff just doesn't matter. You know, there's a more open, creative, invitational way to be present for one another. You don't have to worry about all these rules about purity laws and washing hands and who you eat with and who's pure and who's impure, who's in, who's out. You know, all that starts to go out the window, and it threatens the whole construct of the day. Very much like what we're kind of experiencing, right? There's an external situation that's kind of shaking at the foundations of what it means to be alive, you know, what it means to be human, particularly in that time and place. And so Saul didn't want anything to do with that. And he prided himself as one who was not only empowered to arrest and detain any of these folks who classified themselves as this new emerging radical group called the Christian community. That was his job, right? So he was even there at the stoning of Stephen. So he's obviously aggressively into wiping out anything that might bring about that kind of social or spiritual even economic or even moral, from their perspective, a transformation of what it meant to be human. That's who Saul was. Saul's on a horse, and he's riding his way to Damascus. And the text tells us, which is somewhat metaphorical, that he's on his way to herd up again another group of Christians and pull them back to Jerusalem, probably put them in prison, maybe even persecute them. So Saul's powerful in this image, right? He's on a horse, he's on the road, and all of a sudden, a bolt of lightning, right? This external brilliance shows up on the road to Damascus, and Saul is thrown off of his horse. Total metaphor, right? Think about that. Saul is thrown off his horse. He's off the horse, and he's blinded. He cannot see. His eyes are open. He cannot see. So he's lost all agency. Sound familiar? He can't see anymore. He can't see. He can't connect with his old life. Everything's gone. And it says for 3 days after this happens, right, he neither eats nor drinks. And that 3-day language is so powerful in any of these Bible stories, right? Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days. It's like everything, it takes 3 days for everything to truly sink in. So for Saul, something happens in the world that knocks him off horse. He blind for 3 days and goes into, if you will, into the tomb of it all, right? He's completely disconnected after 3 days. So what happens to Saul? Saul, they call it he's converted, but Saul somehow makes this other decision to ultimately realize that maybe the path he was on wasn't the path he needs to continue on. And so he has this conversion experience, and for the next 3 years, so give yourself some time here, for the next 3 years, he gives himself over to understanding, exploring, growing in his awareness of a new way of living together in conjunction with this Christian community that he had persecuted for so long. And after those 3 years, Saul becomes the person we know of as Paul. An existential shift has taken place for this individual, right? To where his core identity has been transformed. Coming off the horse, blinded, spending time tending to the potential of a new way forward, and then allowing that to take him over to the point where he becomes an advocate for this new way of life. That is a powerful story of transformation. And it's a story that I think we can kind of hang on to in some level to say, look, Saul didn't turn into Paul like that, right? He had to have this breakdown, this disconnect. He had to go through all that. I'm sure it was agonizing, painful, full of regret. They don't go into the detail. You know, if a psychologist had sat down with Paul and said, or Saul, or whoever he was at the time, said, look, why don't you keep a journal and let us know kind of how it happened for you internally that you were able to make this shift? That really would have been helpful. There's not a lot of content about that. But we do know that the story kind of holds some of that content in its metaphors. The power of horse that comes crushing down, the disconnected of being able to see your way, the way you were, previously, that's gone to you. This capacity to nurture a new way of being, and then this acceptance to live into it over the course of 3 years, another three, is really, I think, the invitation to all of us. And so I think the question that I just want to have you reflect on maybe this week is, so what if that is happening in many ways to so many of us, in so many different ways, right? If that's happening to us, then where do we go for this 3 years, if you will, to begin to allow the new way forward to inform us, shape us, change our core identity. And what I've noticed in these conversations and experiences that I've had up to this point, and you probably are noticing other ones as well, but I'm noticing these three safe havens that we've started off with. It's almost as if if you want to think about it as God, but I think about it as like the universe, or there's something about when it all comes crumbling down, where do you begin to reconstruct? And those three areas that are totally calling to us and saying to us, I'm here for you. Those safe places are, one, to pay attention to what's going on inside, to honor that, to spend time there. That is an invitation that we rarely get. Whether you think about journaling or seeing a therapist, or learning how to meditate or use yoga, or find a way that you can build a relationship that is richer with your inner self and the story of your inside self. This is a place that's inviting you into that, right? That there's something beautiful about that, something hope-filled about that. The second one is this capacity to be an intimate, tending partner to others. And I had an experience this last week, a couple of them actually, where I was in conversations with people and they were able to kind of go a little bit deeper. I think because they were just kind of broken down and rubbed a little bit raw, right? They were just like a little edgy, and they were able to share more deeply. And it hit me that, wow, we get so busy and we talk logistics all the time. Have we lost the art of partnering with someone inside their own, deep soul story? This is another space that's inviting us, and especially people that we might not know as well. A quick example. Let's see what I got. I got a couple minutes. I drove up to where was I? Healdsburg or something like that. Yeah, Healdsburg the other day to pick up some grape steaks. We're having some problems with our fence. Grape steaks are hard to find. Yada yada yada. Go get a truckload of grape steaks up in Healdsburg. The husband and wife are there in the driveway, 7:30 in the morning, bundling up the grape steaks for me to load in the truck. And they're all masked up, and I'm masked up. And I will tell you, they, like me, are so hungry for conversation that three strangers stood in their driveway just having a very thoughtful, lovely conversation that I wouldn't normally have with somebody who I'm picking up grape steaks from in Healdsburg. I would just say, hey, thanks a lot, and I'd load up the car. It'd be so functional. But there's this opportunity right now to just go a little deeper with people. And what I swear to you, it was just this like, it was such a lovely conversation that at the end, I could tell we all wanted to hug each other. But because of the social distancing, I said, thank you so much for this conversation. It was a lovely morning with the two of you. And, we had this like goodbye moment. And I'm like, this is a gift. This is a gift. So that's the second one that I really think is calling to us to tend to, right? Ask one more question. Be curious. Say, wow, how are you feeling? Take a step in to the life of another. That's the second one. And then the third one, of course, is we need, especially with the climate crisis just lingering around the edges of this pandemic, it will be there for us to re-engage deeply as soon as we get through this. This invitation to find our deep connection to the natural world again, and then construct life ways out from that relationship is huge, and it is a safe place for you. You can sit at the ocean shore and commune with the pounding waves, or feel the salt air, blowing through your hair, whatever works for you, right? You have this capacity to commit to your relationship with the natural world. And you're going to need that abiding connection and relationship as we try to move our way into the global situation of how to manage life in a new way that's in harmony, that is mutually beneficiary to all species and ourselves. And we're going to have to find that new balance place. And it might not happen in our lifetime, but it needs to happen, right? It has to happen. So I think that's the third one. So those three arenas are what I would kind of have you reflect on this particular week. And maybe you can work through that same series of movements, but whether you brush your teeth and then go bang, boom, bang in the mirror. That's it. Just a reminder of those three. And if you come up with some, obviously share them in the chat box this morning, and maybe you can come up with a hand motion that would be reflective of them. I think there's something about connecting a physical movement to them that helps as well. Today I want to kind of finish up with a quote by Paul Tillich. And I've been referencing Paul Tillich a lot lately. I can tell you why. He's not, he's somewhat of a controversial figure as well. He's such a huge theologian in the 21st century. But Tillich says that the first duty of love, and if you think about going all the way back to the Saul story, that Jesus was saying, no, it's not about how we regulate life religiously. It's how we give love expression relationally. And that is the new legal code, right? It replaces all the legal code. And you can read, if you read Jesus or what they wrote of Jesus, right, you'll get that. So Tillich says, so what's the first duty of love? And Tillich says it's to listen. To listen. And I would encourage you to say, so listen to what? And it would be listen to the story of your soul and the way in which spirit engages your soul. That's one space to listen. Listen to neighbor, to their story. About the Black Lives Matter movement is a beautiful opportunity for us to finally listen, to tend to the story of another. And there's so many stories like that. Listen to those stories in an empathetic, meaningful, powerful way. Let that story be part of your story, your own story, right? That's the second one. Listen. And then, of course, listen to earth, to world. This is where the kingdom, if you will, unfolds. It doesn't unfold in some sort of abstract paradise after you're dead and gone. That is not where kingdom happens. It happens now in the here and the now. And to be tentative to that. Tentative? Tend to that, right? Paul Tillich, the first duty of love is simply to listen. Listen. Why do I pick Paul Tillich? Tillich was a soldier, chaplain, I think, in World War I. Saw so much horror in World War I that his entire worldview and much of the worldview of the people that he fought alongside of, he was in the trenches, the whole 9 yards, right? He just saw such brutality that he lost his concept of God that was with him when he arrived as someone in the military. And so everything kind of fell apart for Paul Tillich, and he had to reconstruct something out from that made more sense. And that's partly what made him such a vibrant theologian, is this, in a sense, Tillich went through what Saul went through. He fell off the horse. He was blinded to his old notions of what life is like, and he had to begin to reconstruct. And out from the Roaring '20s and post World War I, he begins to reconstruct this, right? And there's all sorts of writings by Paul Tillich you can read. But I just wanted to close with one of his quotes from a book he calls The New Being, which is Paul Tillich's way of saying, what is the challenge of Christianity anyway? And for Paul Tillich, Christianity is not about being a Christian. It's about an invitation to a new reality. That Christianity is having the capacity or the skill sets of the soul or the relationships to birth yourself into a new reality. It's about this transformation. It's about resurrection. It's about reconciliation. It's about reunion with with yourself, with others and world, right? That's what Tillich is saying is the capacity of religion. So here's his quote. Paul Tillich writes this: out of disintegration, out of death, something is born of eternal significance. That which is immersed in dissolution emerges in new creation. Resurrection happens now, or it just doesn't happen at all. It happens in us. It happens around us. Resurrection happens within the soul and within history, within nature and the universe itself. It is reconciliation or reconnecting. It is reunion or rebuilding of relationships. That is resurrection. That's what it means to be a new being. It is a new state of things. So do we participate in that? For the message of Christianity is not Christianity, but this new reality, this invitation into that reality, a new state of things. It has appeared, sometimes hidden, sometimes visible. It is there. It is here. So accept it. Enter into it and let it grasp you. Isn't that beautiful? A great quote by Paul Tillich to close out this morning. I'm reminded in many ways that something that a clergy person I used to work with would remind me of from time to time is that the work that we do, sometimes we won't see the benefit of that work. Right? That resurrection, that new life, that different way of being that I'm talking about and we're thinking about, it might not truly be ours to experience. But if we begin the hard work of early steps into it, maybe some child, even yet to be born, will experience that life. Maybe some species that's currently under threat will all of a sudden find itself in new frontier. Maybe relationships will look different years from now because of the work we do today. We don't need to do this just for ourselves. We can do this for the sake of those in future generations, seventh generation thinking, as they talk about in indigenous cultures. That, this is not ultimately work that we might see manifested in our lifetimes, but it is work that can manifest throughout the shared lifetime of humanity and the future that maybe we don't see, but will be. Sometimes that's my only hope, right? It's not like it's going to make much of a difference in my little life, but it will make a difference in the experience of life itself. When I kind of trust in that and think about that perspective, I gain another layer of courage to think about the work I need to do to listen. All right. Well, peace be with you on this crazy day. As the tumultuous weather reminds of us of our tumultuous lives, as the heat of the day draws out from us all of the uncomfortable feelings of a hot day, we know this seems like our reality these days. Yet one more layer of sort of external suffering that we have to engage in and at the same time find our way through. I'll sleep outdoors tonight to make my way through it. I will also commit to you to continue to push myself to listen in those places that are safe haven for me. And I invite you to do the same. All right, a couple of announcements before I send you on your day. One, thank you. I don't thank PG&E often, but we held in there. I was really worried that we were going to lose power for this presentation, but we held on. That's great. Just a reminder that keep in your soul, or however you pray or connect to the sacred or hold people's lives in a meaningful way. All those kids starting to learn and having to do distance learning, whether they be in universities or a kindergartner, boy, the challenges of that are just they really feel overwhelming. And so, as much love as you can give to those experiencing that, including all of the teachers and educators and staff that surround that experience, obviously, that's all front and center for us these days. Maybe listening to your kids or any child and how they're experiencing that could be one of those kind of safe havens to spend some time in, clearly. A reminder that this Thursday, our council meets as the new council, so we have a Zoom call together this Thursday. Also, Martin, who has been on a well-deserved kind of mini sabbatical and vacation, is back in the office on Wednesday. I'm thinking about for next week, I might interview Martin and just kind of talk about what he did during his sabbatical time and, kind of provide you a chance to hear some of the wisdom he has stumbled into as he spent time working, I believe, on some musical creation work that he's working on. Also, I just started getting some of the applications for our new podcast series that we're going to be launching pretty soon. And we're having PhD students from the Graduate Theological Union create some of these podcasts for us. I saw one of the applications just the other day. Unbelievable. I'm so excited for what that's going to bring to both you and me, selfishly, our community life together, some just brilliant thinkers bringing some thoughtful reflection on some really powerful ideas and concepts and shared experiences that we are all in today. I think it's going to be amazing. So that's coming up. Also a reminder to keep an eye on, there's a section of our This Week that goes out to you, sort of who we keep in prayer or who we pay attention to because they're either celebrating something or in some sort of transition, or they're struggling with a health concern. Just to keep monitoring those. And of course, we can't talk to those people physically, but we could certainly send them cards or leave them a voicemail, send them an email, find a way to allow those people to feel your presence as they move through this. It's so much different to have to go through all this stuff alone, it feels like to me. So just a touch point would be an awesome thing for us as a community to provide for those people. And then last but not least, and I know this is a stretch, but I told them I would pitch it. I was meeting with the people at the GTU, and I found out that a number of the PhD students are losing their dorm housing and really struggling with how to find affordable housing in the Bay Area given that loss. And, if you felt like, hey, I've got a couple extra rooms, or I live in a big house still and I don't need all that space, and I want to maybe do a low rental situation to a PhD student at the Graduate Theological Union, or at least have some transitional time. Obviously, you'd have to invite them into your, coronavirus bubble and let them kind of be pure and holy for a bit. So very complicated situation. But if you're like, yeah, I want to do that. And I will tell you that anytime you have a PhD student running around your house, it makes for great conversation. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me and I can at least have a conversation with you. There's a few of them I know personally that are really struggling right now. They're doing hard work to find new places to live and to study remotely. But if there is a connection locally, I would see if I can make the relationship come together. I think that's it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Make sure you listen to Martin's musical piece. It's right in the wheelhouse of today's discussion. This idea that I'm a kind of a weary, broken pilgrim in all of this, but I'm working my way into the city of heaven, right? Not. We need to reframe it. The city of heaven that we hope manifests itself in the experience of the life we share. And we will get there. We'll get there in the early steps by listening, tending to, and inviting that new spirit into the world in which we share. All right. Amen. Peace.